Okay, so this question is, what are the positives and negatives of the IoT? Provide examples of how the IoT is used in society, and identify concerns that need to be addressed. This is the 10 marks. If you were to mention positives, 1 mark. Mention negatives, 1 mark. Provide examples of how it's used in society, 1 mark. However, if you were to give explanation, that'll be 2 marks each. An extra mark if you gave explanation of how it could be used in society. If you mention areas of concern like security, privacy, regulations, etc., 2 marks. And a detailed discussion of these areas of concern, an extra 2 marks. So identifying, 2 marks. Detailed discussion, extra 2 marks. So what could that look like in an answer? Let me zoom in slightly so you can see this in more detail. An opening about the IoT. Have a read of it. So I talked about a few different benefits about the IoT. Online banking, online shopping, improved healthcare, e-commerce, global news, instant messaging, happy days. However, we've got negatives: hacking, dangerous, inappropriate materials for children to have, social media networks having an impact on mental health, like TikTok, etc. So, that's my opening. I then discuss how it could be used in society. Like real-time monitoring, real-time processing. That's key, guys. Real-time. Remote monitoring of people's body processes. So I mentioned this in a previous video that doctors can have a look at people, like how they're feeling, their temperature, their blood work, well, not their blood works, but the heartbeat, etc., remotely from a different location. Real-time data. So this talks quite a lot about the medical side. So this is an explanation. Whereas I would say that this needs to be expanded a little bit more. Less positives, more detail. This is fine because this goes into a little bit of detail here. So I would say this would be 1 mark, 3 marks because I've explained in a bit more detail. We then want to talk about how it's used in society. This is great for all to do with medical. This is not really needed. Smart cities, fine. Athletes measuring performance. But again, I would probably, if I was to do this again, only give 2 examples and talk about them in a little bit more detail. There's quite a lot of different examples in here. So for example, we can go into quite a bit of detail about smart cities. We can go into detail about how it could be used for athletes. So how can athletes measure their performance? What could they be wearing? What sort of performances could we be looking at? Mentioning about the real-time data. Looking at their recovery time. Finally, we're talking about the detailed discussion areas of concern, explaining how they can be addressed. So how can we address these any concerns? So this talks about security and privacy and all about malarkey. Stop going all the way down there, man. Sorry, I'm having a nightmare because my trackpad's not working. Let me see if I can get it working now. Okay, here we go. So this is talking about security and privacy. So from there, we can talk about different regulations, different privacy. Does data protection cover it? Security encryption. But these companies are going to be responsible for all of this to minimize any risks. There is problems with hacking, concerns about surveillance, which need to be worked on, so to speak. To get better marks, I'll probably mention specifics about different privacy and regulations. So let me just paste in these. All of these different regulations that we could use as an example. So GDPR, which is used in the EU, means that all companies have to follow certain rules with protecting your data and not selling it, etc. Selling and protecting. That's a big one. Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So again, if you're doing something for people under the age of 13, you have to follow rules about collecting kids' personal information. The Electronic Communication Privacy Act. So this is all about data interception, stopping person from intercepting data being travelled between A and B. So for example, if you've got, I don't know, you're sending a message to someone, it stops them from stealing that information. If you've got a security camera and it's sending footage to somewhere else, you can't intercept it and steal it. But you can, but this rule is making companies be tight on how they send this data. Health insurance, portability and accountability. So this basically means that, think about these smartwatches. If I've got a smartwatch and it's measuring my blood pressure and it's sent to my doctor, the doctor has to follow HIPAA so that the data which they collect is A, relevant, but B, protected. So it can't be containing information about what, like, messages I'm sending people, like my mum. But it can store my health information because I've agreed to it. It's fine as long as we keep it safe. So they're the main ones. I would say HIPAA, Electronic Communication Privacy Act, Children's Online Privacy Protection, and GDPR, which is the top one, which is, again, in Europe. It just protects the use and storing of data in Europe. Cayman doesn't follow that. America doesn't follow that. This is just for Europe, that first one. Okay. And I'll probably add that into my answer when I'm talking about privacy and regulations. So overall, this will probably get 8 or 9 marks out of 10. But I think you can make it better.